Okay. Hi, my name's Nick, and welcome to Wolves on the Westwind. This is a fantasy visual novel, and the code for the game was sent over by the team behind the game, and they'd seen that I played Sir Bronte, and they said, oh, if you like that, check this out. So, kisses from my face to yours, thank you very much. And apparently this is set in the Dark Eye RPG universe, which, full disclosure, I have not played, so if you have and you're watching this, then you might get things that I might have not necessarily got, but we'll see. So I don't know if this is going to be a full series or whether this will just be a one-off. I'll kind of leave that up to you guys. So if you enjoy this, then let me know and we can do more, because they said it's probably about 12 to 15 hours in total, and if we're going to play this, we're going to Sir Bronte the hell out of this, so we'll get everything. But for now, we'll start at the beginning and we'll see where it takes us. Okay, so we can be Ulrich. You are Ulrich Duranold, a weathered mercenary from Andergast, who has wasted his life away fighting other people's battles. You come north to Thorwell protecting a Nostrian trader, who was on his way to important talks with the hetman of Islifsfell, Ulgar Firunjason. I'm going to butcher every pronunciation in this, just FYI, and I apologise. I have Battle Sense and I have Forceful Blow. So Battle Sense is an ability that allows Ulrich to pick up things others might miss, allowing him to spot weaknesses in combat opponents and find hidden advantages in many situations. And Forceful Blow allows Ulrich to strike with an overwhelmingly strong blow to knock opponents back, take them by surprise, and get through a variety of obstacles that might stand in his way. Okay, well, we have Nedim. You are Nedime Saba Shadir, a mage from the lands of Tulamides, struggling to complete your training. You come north to seek help from the Runajasko, a community of Thorwallian magic users. Having been turned away, you're now returning south with no plan of what to do next. Blinding Flash is a spell that confuses the target's sense of sight, so that they have trouble perceiving their surroundings. Or Orcanofaxius is an elemental spell that causes a jet of air to damage its target and blow it backwards. The spell might be used in combat to force enemies away, but also to affect the environment around Nedime. Ooh. So basically we're either going on endurance or magic. I might go with endurance. I would go with Ulrich, because, you know, who doesn't love a big sword? Ulrich, let's do it! Act 1. Chapter, and so it was. Get down! You hear the twang of bowstrings in enough time to throw the trader you're escorting into cover. He leaps behind a bush in a blind panic as you skitter around to a nearby tree to keep watch. This road was supposed to be safe. I had it guaranteed. Quiet. Be quiet. He swallows down a bundle of nerves as he looks at you, and then peeks over the bush to find your pursuers. You can torture yourself around to look behind the tree without giving the archers a target to hit. It's too dark to see them or their numbers clearly. You can hear them though, getting closer, quickly. Ilisfell is close! We should make a run for it! You know he's not wrong, but you also know that unless you do something now, that alone will not be enough. Ditch the cart. Ditch the cart and let's go. Enough, we're leaving the car. We have to go on without it. But my wares! Forget the wares, your life's more important. Go, now! You pick him up by the collar and throw him back towards the road where he scrambles to stay upright. He casts one last desperate look towards the horse and cart you've abandoned before he bolts away awkwardly. Another arrow pierces the earth right by your foot as you sprint after him, sword kept tightly in hand. You dare one glance back as you run, hoping to catch sight of them through the shadows of night. The first of them runs cleanly around the cart, ignoring it completely to continue the chase. The second uses it as a springboard to leap onto the horse, quickly cutting its reins free and driving it towards you. Oh, I screwed this up already. With others quickly appearing after them, you know it won't be long before they run you down. Oh, Jesus. So Battle Sense is an ability that... Yeah, we know that. Okay, so speed up, stay with Josold. Well, we've got 18 battle sense, so may as well. Yeah, let's go battle sense. You sharpen your senses to find any advantage. You hear the pace of the pounding feet and hooves behind you. You hear Josol's heavy, uneven breathing as he struggles to run. Your eyes lock onto the low-hanging tree branch dead ahead of you. That will slow it down. With a heave, you try to keep up your pace as you lift your sword over your head to cut cleanly through the wood, and then you run. Beside you, Josol flails as he struggles to keep up with any kind of pace. So focused are you on your escape that you don't even notice the town now clearly visible ahead. It's only when the first arrow sails past you in the other direction that you really focus on the palisade. People are now racing out of town towards you, all well armed and well armoured. Okay, I feel like I should join the fight. As the road between the palisade and the bandits becomes a hail of arrows, you push Josol ahead towards the soldiers. Go! Keep going! He disappears from view as you turn to help the Thorwallian warriors in defending of their town. You feel a swell of confidence as cries ring out across the plains. These are the numbers you need for a fair fight. The real danger has passed. Against all odds, you've actually made it to safety. It's not a long fight, and those who were chasing you are quickly routed by the town's defenders. They ask you many questions about the chase as they invite you into the town proper. And then you can finally rest a while, laying down your burdens until morning comes. Whew. Okay, we survived, and I got a first achievement. Oh, and my battle sense has increased. Well, it's not increased, it's gone back up, which is cool. Just so you know as well, I did this with Cerbronte, and I will do it with this, especially like for now, but if we do a full playthrough. The first time I play through these games, I go purely on gut instinct. I'm not necessarily going to go into it with a strategic aspect, like where I'm trying to get certain things. I'm going to take the decisions based on pure gut instinct. Normally, that means I screw it up royally and die, but I always like getting into the story and just trusting my gut and seeing what happens. It's a cold, bright sun that rises over the thatched roofs of Ulisses to greet you the next day. Even after years of training and experience, you still feel the aches and pains of your trials and tribulations. A gentle breeze tugs at your clothes, and the smell of salt on the air helps to keep you sharp. And the town wakes up around you as though nothing had ever happened. People open up their shops and services for the day, seagulls caw overhead. Over the din, you hear the blowing of bellows and the pounding of hammer against steel as a blacksmith gets to work. Outlander! No sooner have you stopped at a market stand of freshly baked loaves and buns do you hear her call. You immediately recognise her as one of the warriors who came to your rescue at the palisade. Among the rest of the townsfolk, she stands out in a dress much richer and brighter in colour. Estrid Ulfgarstotir, we met briefly last night. Morning. Good morning. I'm glad to meet you. Properly this time. Indeed. Let me be the first to give you a proper welcome to Ulisses. I can only apologise for the chaos of your arrival. It was hardly your fault. What can I do for you? Her brow furrows as she grimaces at you and becomes more serious. I'm afraid it's about the attack. My father wishes to speak to you about it. Come, you leave with us this morning. It's the least we can do. Much to the complaining of your empty stomach, you're torn away from your breakfast to follow Estrid. Yeah, but she's going to give us food, so it's all good. She leads you further inland, jostling through the crowds as the town wakes up around you. I'll be honest with you, Outlander. This attack was quite troubling. We need to make sure nothing like that ever happens again, if we can. We have a reputation to uphold. It was supposed to be safe. Indeed, as I understand my contract, it was supposed to be little more than a gesture of goodwill. The road was supposed to be safe. Her face falls, and for a moment she looks rather embarrassed before she composes herself again. It is true, the road should be safe. That is why we asked you to take it. My father wanted you to avoid the dangers of the sea, storms from the north, outlaws from the old stones. This attack has made us look like fools, and we won't stand for that. Estrid falls darkly quiet after that. It makes you slightly more uneasy as you continue up the gentle slope towards the Hetman's Hall. The fight had been over almost as soon as it started. Many of your attackers had fled at the first sight of the defending warriors, but those who had helped you had been quick to usher you away to the longhouse to rest and recover. They'd seemed a little on edge, but you thought that it was simply down to the surprise of the attack. Now, it seems that something larger was at work, and that the hetman wants to speak to you about what it's concerning. The noise of the town only swells as its bustling streets awaken, but as you climb upwards, everything starts to feel just a little less cramped as the space between buildings grows. Soon, you're in a wide open square, and Estrid is beckoning you towards a great hall that stands ancient and resolute before you. She pushes the huge double doors to the open hall without knocking or waiting. You're slightly taken aback by the sheer scale of the room you step into. Long benches flank the path to the hetman's table, and huge chandeliers hang from the rafters. A handful of trophies are placed on the walls, a reminder of the triumph to those who have ruled in Eiselfell. The air is stale and reeks of food, fire, and sweat. "Father, I found our guest." Estrid leads you to the table that sits at the back of the hall, positioned so that those sat there can watch over everyone. The hetman looks up from his conversation at his daughter's call and quickly stands up as you approach. He greets you warmly and heartily, with arms wide and a smile to match, bowing his head in your direction. "Good, I thought he was gonna be pissed." "Well met, Outlander. In Svafnir and Travier's names, you are most welcome here. Thank you for joining us this morning. Please, sit. Take your fill of food and drink." A wide spread of meats, fish, and breads cover the central square of the table, in easy reach of the hetman and his family. This is quite the feast, hetman. Thank you for the invitation." Ulfgar chuckles before sitting down to tuck into his own meal once more. "I would be lying if I said there were no advantages to being hetman. Please, sit. Come, we must get to business. This is Brand. He's the town's Godi, and he's been an advisor to the head person for many decades now." He indicates an older, near-decrepit man in a heavy bundle of robes who sits and eats at the end of the table. Brand gives you a long side glance that immediately unnerves you, but he says nothing and continues chewing. Without wasting another breath, the hetman moves on to introduce the other, younger man at the table. "I believe you've met my youngest son, Raskir." Raskir nods at you curtly as he throws a bite of bread into his mouth, then picks up a tankard to drink from. Once again, he seems to look you up and down before he leans across the table to give you a strong handshake. "Thank you again for escorting the Nostrian trader to our town. I'm sorry it wasn't as simple as suggested. The whole thing is rather troubling." Shame about the court, you seem upset by this. You seem upset by this. Forgive my saying so, but you seem more upset by this than I'd expect. Raskir chuckles before taking a sip from his tankard and reaching forward to rip a handful of bread from the loaf. "Do you know what it means to be peaceful, Outlander?" "I don't, personally." "Peaceless. Did I say peaceful?" "Peaceless. I don't personally, no." Estrid hides a smirk at your impertinence behind her goblets as Raskir leans forward with a dark look. "Those that attacked you last night have committed terrible, terrible crimes. They're a shame to their ancestors, and they've been stripped of all honour that they could have ever had. They will never find peace with the gods. They will never fight at Svafnir's side or drink at Travier's table. That is why the Peaceless are scorned and hide among themselves on the Ulper Stones. For them to return in force to the mainland makes no sense. But if a group of them have, then they're a grave danger, and we must deal with them." An uncomfortable silence falls on the hall while you process what Raskir has just said. Out of it, it's the hetman that clears his throat to speak up, talking to you over his drink. "I've called you here for help, Outlander. You have already proven yourself a capable fighter. You could be of great help to us once again, and my son is right. We must deal with the Peaceless. Today, he and Estrid will head out to find those that remain and end the threat before they can strike again. I'd like you to join them." "Just three of us." I feel like, yeah. Backup's never a bad thing, is it? But who needs backup when you got me? Just the three of us? Really? It was quite a number that attacked us, and still a fair few that fled when it was over. Wouldn't it be better to send a larger group of warriors if you hope to defeat them? A band like this would simply turn and run at the sight of an army of Thorwallian warriors coming to meet them. If everything goes according to plan, a smaller group can catch them off guard. And besides, I've seen you fight. Together, we're more than good enough to defeat these wretches. With the room falling quiet again, you can't help but notice the small, niggling feeling in the back of your mind. You can't place it, but it only adds to the uneasiness that's been building in your chest all throughout the morning. I am happy to pay you, Outlander, if that's what it takes. And you're welcome to stay here as a guest, for a while at least, if that suits you. Of the three of them, Ulfgar is the only one who seems patient to await your answer. Estrid is at least trying to mask her own uneasiness, glancing up at you between small pickings of her food. Raskir, though, makes no effort to hide the fact that he's on edge, staring at you over his meal. Oh, I thought that was something where I thought I was antagonising Raskir. Something's wrong. Something's wrong here. What aren't you telling me? In the same moments, Raskir rolls his eyes in frustration. Estrid sighs and rubs hers. The Hetman quickly signals for them both to settle down, shifting in his seats and putting a careful hand on the table. We aren't trying to deceive you, Outlander. There are things in motion that are beyond your control, Outlander. The stranger at the end of the table has been so quiet throughout the meal that you'd forgotten he was even there. Now, though, you look at him as he spits out a fishbone and glances across to you. And under his gaze, you feel the hair on the back of your neck stand on end. It is the will of the Runehas that you arrive here. If they had wished to keep you in Nostria or anywhere in the south, they would not have brought you here. But here you are, so that you may aid us in this. The Hetman did not wish for me to tell you. He thought you may doubt what the Runehas have revealed to us. One look back at the Hetman tells you that he is feeling a measure of regret at the Godie's outburst. But again, he awaits your response. What did they say? What did the Runehas tell you exactly? That an unknown warrior would aid in what is to come. Before you arrived, we did not understand what that meant. But then the Peaceless chased you to our doorstep. The Runehas have revealed their will to us. I'm sorry that I wasn't more open with you until now. There's little more that you can say now, Father. Either the Outlander will help us, or he won't. I was always going to help, wasn't I? You're very conscious that all three of them now await your final answer. But as you sit in silent contemplation of his words, your eyes are drawn back across the room to the Godie. He has gone back to his own little world, chewing on some dried fish and staring off into some parts of space. But you feel pressure building, left with very little time to think about your decision. Especially as the Hetman and his family have now left their meals alone and are really focused on you. Your mind teeters a little at the idea that your arrival in Isilfell was preordained. The gods have never struck you as particularly forthcoming with their plans, if they even had any. But there's that niggling sensation again, chewing at the back of your mind. As we agreed, Outlander? You sit, stunned, for one more moment. Then you're overwhelmed, and without realising it, you nod. Just once. Agreed. Agreed, Hetman. I'll help where I can. Then your word is a pledge to me. There is no hint of jovial nature now. He is grim and reserved as he nods. You should all prepare and leave as soon as possible. Good hunting. Ooh, this is cool. Blessings of the hunt. You meet with the Hetman's children, Estrid and Raskir, in order to prepare for the task ahead. Ah, cool, so we're going to get options about where we need to go. This is really cool. I like this a lot so far. Okay, Blessings of the hunt, here we go. Preparations do not take long. You're told to bring as little as you can, but you'll move swiftly and sleep rough, should the need arise. You're well practiced for such exercises, and soon you're armed, armoured, and once again underway. You shouldn't be nervous as you walk back to the longhouse and through the town of Isilfell. Nerves before this kind of skirmish were honed out of you years ago. But something about the words of the old man, the Godie, are toying with your mind. Thor whalers lean heavily on the will of their Runehas. Over the years, you've heard many Thor whalers travelling further south talk of them very openly. Never has it affected you so personally. Is it really their will that you'll be here now? If so, why? Why not someone else? These questions grate on you, no matter how hard you fight to shake them off before you reach the palisade. Estrid and Raskir are waiting for you there. They both cut far more imposing figures, dressed and ready to fight. They both acknowledge your arrival with a quiet nod as they glance over your equipment to gauge your readiness. Let's hunt some outlaws. Raskier quickly lets out a hearty laugh and points at you as he looks at his sister. Ha! I like this one. She gives each of you a wry smile, but quickly motions for you both to calm down. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Overconfidence will kill us faster than any Peaceless can. Before we begin, we'll ask Swafnir for a blessing. Will you join us? I don't know your prayers. I don't know your prayers well enough to take part in something like this seriously. No matter, it's simple. You can listen to me and Estrid first, and that'll be enough. Feel no pressure, Outlander. For us, this is tradition. It goes unnoticed by her brother, but you hear the very slight pause in her explanation. It is our duty to fulfill. For you, the offer is extended only if you wish it. Though I'm sure the gods would welcome it. Yeah, why not? Then I'll join you. Estrid bows her head to respect your decision before moving to break the circle you've all formed in the street. As she walks away from you, you catch the subtle but strange look on her face, somewhere between disappointment and concern. Raskier, meanwhile, doesn't hide his joy at your decision. They line up next to each other, a few steps out of the way of the path out of town. You stand next to Estrid, following their lead as they lie their weapons down at their feet. Raskier, first, bows his head and raises his hands over his axe, with his palms facing towards the heavens. Oh, Swafnir, brave conqueror, tireless hunter, watch over this axe and its bearer. He speaks with a ferocity that you're not quite expecting, letting his voice carry far with no hint of shame. In your name, and by your will, I go forth to fight. To build upon the honour of my forebears, to prepare for the final fight, to fulfil my destiny. That is my goal. Grant me but a piece of your godly power, and let me prevail. With that, he snatches his axe back up, though he waits where he stands for Estrid to say her prayers too. She repeats the prayer almost word for word, changing only axe for sword and shield. Then it's your turn. Take it slowly to make sure you don't get the words wrong. Your prayer is not as strong or confident as Estrid's, and certainly not as much as Raskier's, but he's nodding at you while you pick your sword back up to affirm that you've done everything correctly. Estrid's expression is much harder to read, but she holds herself confidently as she double-checks the straps on her vambraces. You take the lead, Outlander. Take us where you were first attacked. We will pick up the trail from there. Time to hunt some men. It doesn't take long for you to reach the point where you remember ducking for cover. The cart lies abandoned in the middle of the road, exactly where you left it, but there are no signs of the wares that were being carried. Just a handful of arrows strewn about, and light, confused footprints going this way and that about the place. They must have come back for the wares after you fled. At least that will make them easy to track. The three of you spend some time pacing the area, deducing which footprints are those that you need. All of you are quiet as you work, focused, or perhaps conscious of falling into the same trap again. But then, you find them. Heavy imprints of boots in the verge of the road heading north. As you'd come from the southeast, you know they aren't yours, but they're fresh, definitely less than a day old. Signal the siblings. On the off chance you're not alone, you give a sharp whistle to get the siblings' attention. When they're both looking towards you, you indicate the direction the tracks lead in. Their faces fall when they see you pointing north, and they look around carefully as they close towards you. That's very strange. They passed around Eiselfell to get here. They must have given it a wide berth. But there's nothing out there. A good day's march will bring you to the foot of the Haldor Mountains. The perfect place to hide an encampment, away from any towns and any prying eyes. Yeah, there could be more. That means there could be more of them at an encampment like that. This might have just been a small party. We don't know for sure, Outlander. But we should find out. Come, we should get going. We're already hours behind. Estrid quickens the pace as you leave the road behind and start your way across the country. The way is easy, at least. They're not flat plains you cross at a light jog, but only gently sloping hills. However, you see the mountains creeping towards you from the north, and you know the way is going to get much harder. You run at a steady pace, keeping your breathing controlled using years of training and experience. You run beside Raskier, who is heavier of foot and breath, even though he doesn't seem to struggle at all. In fact, with his great axe held tightly in one hand as he runs along, he seems very much at ease. As you run, he looks across at you and speaks with big gasps in which to breathe. You look as though you've done this before, Outlander. Are you an experienced tracker? Yeah, you could say that. When it becomes clear you'll say nothing more about it, he laughs and nods. Air of mystery. Well, that's good for us, a tracker and a fighter. This will be easy. I hope so. You continue on that pace for a good few hours without event. Further and further north you go, ever closer to the snow-capped mountains. Estrid makes it her job to keep an eye on the tracks, which don't relent. The outlaws, the Peaceless that you follow, were not worried about being seen or covering their tracks, it seems. They were completely focused on their own goal, whatever that was, though Estrid says that they were moving slower. The sun's at its peak when she stops your march at the top of a hill. Each climb is getting steadily harder, and all three of you are breathing deeply to recover while you can. Estrid, though, brings your attention to a forest at the foot of the mountains that you can now see quite clearly before you. It's still quite some distance away, but there's a settlement at the forest's edge. Even so far away, you can see smoke rising from it, like a campfire that you can see from miles around. Do you think that's them? It must be. Their tracks still head north, and that's the only place between here and the Hjalgal Mountains. I thought Halvik had been abandoned decades ago. It was too far from the sea, too difficult to sustain. They must have run through the whole night to get there already. Is there a different approach? I feel like sneaky is probably the best way. Is there a way we can approach from the forest, maybe? Where there's more cover? It would take some time, and it's already midday. Let's get closer first. We need to know more about what's going on here. Come on, and conserve your energy while you can. It's a grave silence that falls on you as you start forward again. It's different from before. You feel a tension again, and not just your own, but theirs as well. Time seems to slow down as you prepare yourself for whatever encounter is to come next. Already, you feel all your muscles tense and tighten, and you feel your senses just that little bit more on edge. It's as if your body knows more than you do that a difficult fight lies ahead of you. It must be mid-afternoon by the time you eventually arrive. As the earth starts to slope more steadily upwards underneath you, Estrid orders you to slow down again. Soon, you're crawling through the long grass, slowly and on your bellies, as to not draw any unwanted attention. After what seems like an eternity like this, through the blades and reeds around you, you see Hjalvik. At least, you see parts of it. Where the long grass stops, a small dirt road cuts across you from west to east, leading off towards the mountains. Beyond that, you see the remains of a very small village, built across the uneven land of the mountain's roots. A palisade blocks your view of most of the village, but you see some of the ruined rooftops. If it weren't for the two guards standing at the gateway, you'd say no one had lived here for a very long time. They're expecting trouble. Why else would they keep watch? It's 2 guards, we can take them. I mean, it's obviously not just 2. That would be stupid. We could surprise them. I don't like this. I feel like that's the sensible option, but I'm sticking with my sneaky approach, and I'm going to go with we could surprise them. We might be able to surprise them if we move quickly enough. And what if it goes wrong, Outlander? If they're alerted inside the village, all of this could be over very quickly. He's right, Estrid. The element of surprise is with us. We can come back. We need to think quickly. Are you sure about this? We need to think quickly. We need to think of something quickly, any which way. Trying not to move the brush around you too much, you look across to Estrid, who's biting her lip in thought. Hold on. Look. Coming down the road. You crane your neck so that you can see whatever it is that Raskir has seen. From the west, another outlaw shoves a man down the path towards the abandoned village. The man is desperately trying to wrestle out the thick, tight rope bonds around his hands. Immediately after them, another pair follows, another outlaw and another prisoner. This one is more subdued. They have prisoners. That settles it. I'm going. Follow me or don't. Before he moves so much as an inch, Estrid lunges through the grass and snatches his arms tightly. Don't move. We can't let those people suffer, Estrid. There's no decision to be. They have 2 prisoners, which means they can kill one of them just to make a point. We have to be careful. Okay then, smarty pants. Any ideas? What do you think we should do, Estrid? She takes another brief moment to collect her thoughts before she nods. We should double back and approach from the forest, and try to sneak through the palisade from there. Did I not suggest that to begin with? If we can do that, we can deal with any Peaceless we come across quickly and quietly, without raising an alarm. Then we can rescue the prisoners. We might even find a way to get them to safety before the fighting begins in earnest. You hear Raskir let out a disgruntled snort. And what if they kill the prisoners before we make it all the way around the forest? What if we're delayed or caught? Those people cannot be allowed to die. What would you do then? There's only silence for a moment while the young Thorwallian warrior actually thinks. But then you hear a growling sigh. If we can't storm the gates, then we should ask for an invitation into the village. What? They won't attack us on sight. If we approach from the road, they won't attack us on sight. We can use that to get close, attack the guards before they can call for help, and storm the village without losing time. Beside you, Estrid shakes her head and then taps it gently against the floor in frustration. You cannot be that much of a fool, brother. We're outnumbered. That kind of attack will get us all killed. The prisoners have already long been dragged out of view, and there are no more hints as to the Peaceless's true number. You simply do not have enough time to give either plan proper thought. Whichever plan you choose, there will be limited time to execute it. Raskir, I obviously love a man with a beard, but it's a ridiculous plan that will get us all killed, so I'm going with Estrid's plan. A direct attack is too risky. We should go with Estrid's plan. Thank you, Outlander. You see her glance across to her brother with a tilt of her head that you recognise as a... So there. Fine. Let's hope the gods understand your reasoning if this goes wrong, Estrid. More than anything else, Raskir sounds disappointed, but Estrid has already moved on, snaking slowly backwards. Come on, both of you. There's no time to lose. It takes some time to back out of view of the guards and then double around into the forest west of Hjelvik. The telltale signs of autumn turning into winter are far clearer under the thick cover of trees. What is this? Why is there something glowing there? Is it going to do it again? Yeah, what is that? A little snow has already come down from the mountains and the air is cool and crisp. Your breath billows out in front of you as you run down the long, unused paths to make up for lost time. Estrid is focused on the task at hand, and Raskir seems more and more agitated the longer the journey takes. Eventually, though, you come to the palisade again, this time on the northwestern side of the village. Estrid orders you to stop in the shadows of the stronger, taller trees, those that weren't cut away to make way for the palisade. You can see a gap in the tall fencing that the three of you could easily fit through. How convenient. Just need to make sure it's safe. Estrid sneaks forward alone first, creeping over to peer through the gap in the palisade. After a few moments, she signals for you and Raskir to approach. You do your best not to disturb the stillness and you make your way through the brush. At the palisade, you try to gauge what might be on the other side, but the angle is too oblique. You hear some voices though, and Estrid raises a finger to her lips as she watches something you cannot see. When the voices die down, she nods and speaks in a breathless whisper. It doesn't look like they're on guard or patrol, at least not here. I can't see the prisoners though. We'll sneak through and then split up and make our own ways through the village. If we don't find them before we get to the square, that's where we'll surprise the Peaceless. Understood. You nod to show you understand and immediately turn your attention to the task at hand. You take another careful look and listen to make sure you don't run straight into the path of the Peaceless. And then you push through the gap, shoulder first, noiselessly squeezing between the wooden uprights. Even before you're through, you start to take in your new surroundings as you sneak into Hjelvik. You take a moment to take stock of everything you can see and everything you can hear. Everywhere you look, there are old, dilapidated wooden houses and gardens overrun with wildflowers. Broken, cobbled stone paths lead away deeper into the village, and the air stinks of rotting wood. Where it was quiet before, now you hear voices on the gentle wind, though you can't see their source. And all of a sudden, the tension feels so much more than it did before. As quickly and quietly and carefully as you can, you draw your sword and hold it at the ready. Behind you, Estrid and Raskir creep into the village too, staying quiet as they carefully look around. They quickly disappear around corners you can't follow, and your attention turns to the matter at hand. You must get to the village square unseen. Gather round, I shall now speak. You aren't sure exactly where this voice is coming from, except the direction of the square, but it makes you freeze. We've been busy as of late, and there have been many sacrifices. But good work has been done, and so shall it continue today. A roar of cheers rise up in response, which only serves to make you even more nervous. Much closer to you, you hear the sound of a door opening, and realise someone is leaving the hut you stand beside. Before you can be seen, you dash to the wall of the building, where crates and boxes lie abandoned and empty. You skirt behind them as quietly as you can as an outlaw rounds the corner, walking down the path towards you. With bated breath, you wait and wonder for a moment whether your hastily chosen hiding spot will be seen. But the outlaw passes, and you swallow your nerves down as your focus gathers. It's only a matter of time before the other person rounds the same corner, and you'll need to be on your way. I don't necessarily want to use Battle Sense now because I feel like I'm going to need to save that 18. So I might try take out the outlaw, see what happens. Not wanting to take the risk on sneaking into an open street, you wait for the outlaw to reappear. As he walks around the corner, you dash towards him and cover his mouth with your hand to stop him from yelling out. You struggle to turn him around so you can slip your sword arm around his neck and quietly choke him. He fights back, hitting you in the gut with his elbows until the stranglehold works and he falls unconscious. There. You silently lie him down and dash to the next street, which leads you down a path of broken stone stairs. Okay, I took a bit of damage, that's fine. I have more health than Battle Sense, so it's whatever. There, you find an alcove you can hide in to take stock. In the square, the Peaceless seem to be gathered around this mysterious speaker. To your horror, you see one of the prisoners being dragged up next to the speaker by an outlaw with a dagger. Your people abandoned you! They call you Peaceless. They say you will never have honour before the gods. Well, I ask you, my friends, what will their honour be worth when all their gods are dead? There's another chorus of cheers from the crowd, and you see the prisoner sob and bow his head. You need to get closer, but between you and what looks more and more like a sacrifice is another outlaw. She stands by the wall of a house across a stepped path, watching the ceremony with folded arms. There simply isn't time to sneak around her. You will need to fight through her to continue your way. Okay, so forceful blow, we haven't used that yet. Oh, that cost 5, man. Okay, sorry, I'm going to use it. Forceful blow. In an instant, your mind is made up, and you're racing forwards with your sword held high. She doesn't see you coming, and you crash into her at full force, knocking her through the wall's rotting wooden logs. That sounds like it would be loud. The entire wall splinters open and collapses around you both. While you're quick to recover your head, she is almost immediately knocked unconscious by the collapsing logs. As you pick yourself up with a groan, the ceiling supports creak and begin to fall as well. What was that? Yeah, I done goofed. Too late, you realise that the preaching in the square has stopped. To arms, my kid! We are not alone! The square erupts into chaos as the Peaceless grab for their weapons. Your chance to surprise them is spent, but at least their plans for the prisoners, whatever they were, have been stopped. To order! To glory! You hear Raskir's battle cry even over the din of the square as you prepare yourself to enter the fray. There's a small army between you and the siblings. The fight has only just begun. Oh dear, you're very quickly surrounded. Even with all your training and expertise, there's no way you can take them all on alone. You fight your way through to Estrid and Raskir, dealing only with the problems that lie between you. A block here, a parry there. The first outlaw to quickly block your path is quickly felled by a savage swipe at his legs, sending him barreling to the floor. Straight away, you find yourself face to face with another, wielding an axe in each hand. Oh, that's going to put me on 8 if I do that, and that's quite low. I'm just going to engage. You twist your sword into a defensive stance that you can use to block the first of the warrior's heavy blows. And he's going to use the second axe to hurt me, isn't he? Lighter on your feet, you can move much quicker, and as he recovers, you strike him in the chest. Oh nice, that went better than expected. You have enough time to watch him sink to the floor before the next warrior is upon you. She uses a shield to strike you hard in the chest, winding you as you hit the floor hard. Never mind. With that, she raises the shield high above her head and prepares to strike the killing blow. Counter! As it plummets towards you, you catch the strike and throw it away, hitting the warrior with the pommel of your sword. She staggers backwards, which gives you enough room to push yourself up before she strikes at you again. You parry that too, knocking her sword from her hand that leaves her defenceless against your next strike. But she has an axe, not a sword. That's when you catch your breath. A number of the Peaceless already lie dead, but many more are swarming over Estrid and Raskir. And then they're on top of you as well, and you're forced to block and counter another swinging axe. Between strikes, it's difficult to gauge how much longer you'll need, if you can last at all. As you cast your eyes over the battlefield, you catch sight of yet another warrior coming towards you. big and burly is this fighter. He's another to wield a vicious weapon in both hands. Again, come on, you've gone to the effort of describing a weapon. Put those correct weapons in their hands. With a snarl and an angry cry, he starts to sprint towards you, already preparing to strike a terrible blow. Sidestep. As he brings the axe forward again with a howl, you duck and step out of his way, causing him to overreach. As he tumbles over, you strike him in the back of the legs with your sword. He cries out, but quickly gets back up to his feet, readjusting his grip on the axe as he limps around to face you. As your eyes meet, you spin your sword back around to be ready once again. I feel like speed is going to be helpful here. You launch into a flurry of quick and precise blows that aim to throw the warrior off guard. That worked, and he's forced to catch the strikes awkwardly with his axe, allowing you to press him back unrelentingly. His limp makes it easy for you to wrong-foot him, keeping your attack short and sharp and on his weak side. As he tries to force you away with a punch of the axe handle, you duck quickly underneath him and strike upwards. Your slice catches him in his stronger arm, and he cries out in pain. Pain quickly turns to anger and he lashes out, trying to find a way back into the fight. Back and forth you go, trying to find an opening against this relentless foe. But you're starting to gain a palpable edge, as the injuries you've already inflicted start to catch up with him. He must sense it too, as he turns to other means to regain his advantage when you drive him back once more. He grabs an outlaw who's busy fighting Raskia and hurls her towards you to catch you off guard. She tumbles towards you quickly, and you have to dart out of the way so that she doesn't crash into you. Your opponent has bought himself some time, but you still hold a significant advantage. With a desperate swing of his axe that you can easily block, he finally gives you an opening to make the killing blow. Sorry, I'm using forceful blow. With his axe locked behind you by his sword, you grab him and headbutt him as hard as you can. Surprised, he drops the weapon, falling to the ground with the shake of his head. Meanwhile, you've already twisted your sword around to drive it through his chest in one decisive strike. With one last groan, he finally falls silent, and you're able to catch your breath. You're not entirely sure how you're still alive, but you know that you are. You have a brief moment to look around, as the nearest outlaws look at you cautiously before re-engaging. Nearby, the Hetman's children are still fighting away. Estrid is struggling, trying to fight off one warrior with a sword, while another grabs her shield. You see her kick violently at the first, only to be lifted into the air as the warrior catches her foot. She manages to free herself by twisting around like an agitated cat, stabbing the second warrior in the collar. Meanwhile, Raskia howls and cries as he whirls his axe around in wild and unintelligible screams. All it seems to do is drive the crowd of outlaws around him back, but they quickly close in again. The three of you are being boxed in together not far from where the speaker originally preached. Their numbers advantage is beginning to dwindle now, with many of the Peaceless laying either dead or too injured to fight. But they still hold a large numbers advantage, and you'll have to work together to stop yourselves from being surrounded. I feel like a distraction is going to do no good to anybody. Leaving to the phrase too careless, so let's fight methodically. With a short, sharp breath, you walk towards the back of the group that stands between you and the siblings. While you're within reach of the first, you grab her by the shoulder, taking her by surprise. Conserve my energy, I'm going to need it. Even if you make it to Estrid and Raskia, you know the fight won't just end, so you conserve what energy you have. You fight smartly, letting the warrior overextend as she tries to hack at you with her axe. You make quick work of her, making your way straight to the siblings as soon as she crashes to her knees. Estrid and Raskia fight on as you finally reunite with them, both tired and hurt and covered in blood. "Have you seen the prisoners, Outlander?" Estrid shouts at you while she fends off one of the remaining Peaceless with her shield. "No. There's nothing we can do now, Estrid, except keep fighting." One of the warriors tries to wrestle Raskia's axe from his grasp, but with a growl, he headbutts them away again. "We're almost through." You're about to scold him for daring to say something so stupid when out of nowhere, you feel your heart sink. It only lasts the briefest of moments, but it's so intense and so crushing, you're left stunned by its arrival. All three of you freeze and find yourselves breathing hard as the fighting comes to a sudden stop, and as you swallow uncomfortably, your eyes are drawn to the speaker, who stands on the other side of the square. He holds up a trinket that fits in his outstretched hand, which he has thrust towards you like a weapon. On it, you see lines etched into the metal like some archaic and mysterious symbol. It is one and the same as the symbol painted on every shield you can see, and some freshly inked tattoos as well. As your eyes lock with it, you're filled with a strange and nervous tension that fills you with discomfort. Your first instinct is to run, to keep it out of view, to do anything that will shake the discomfort within you. The speaker must see it in your face, in all of your faces. He chuckles and starts to step behind the crowd of Peaceless that now regroup between you. You shall not know peace. Kill them. With a cry, the Peaceless come at you again, and you have to move quickly to stop them killing you on the spot. If we could stop the sorcerer, we could put an end to this. Very well, with me then. Raskir gives a furious cry and swings his axe in both hands, almost full circle around him. The remaining Peaceless drive backwards out of Raskir's way, staying between you and your new target. But if there's magic at work here, then you know you must strike before it clouds your minds once and for all. You have to get past these warriors somehow before the sorcerer can distract you again. Battle sense, baby. This is what I saved my battle sense for. I hope. You leave the fighting itself to instinct, and instead push all of your focus into your senses. Dealing with the Peaceless becomes much easier with all the advantages you find from where no one else looks. One who stands on a loose stone is thrown off balance when you aim a powerful kick at the step. You and Estrid work together to push another couple through a weak spot you notice in the nearby wall, and his defensive line fails. The sorcerer's face falls and becomes a mix of worry and anger, but now you're face to face and able to put an end to this mastermind's schemes. Forceful blow. Let's spunk away the rest of the forceful blow on this, shall we, and hope we don't live to regret it, or regret it and die. Now you unleash all your strength, roaring as you leap forward to strike the sorcerer down. He's unsuspecting of your attack and collapses to the floor with a pained yelp as you slice deep through his arm. How was he not expecting it? We've been running at him. The pendant he clutched falls from his grasp, rolling safely away into the snowy, muddy, bloodied turf. But before you can strike him again, he backs away from you with his hand outstretched towards you. No! Peace! You stop short again as a very distant echo flashes across the very back of your mind. It's gone in an instant, and you don't even have time to recognise what it was, but you're left with a string of regret or guilt that you can't put a finger on as Raskir steps up next to you with a growl. It reverberates through you and seems to shake you from the memory. The sorcerer, looking worried, fumbles for a sword at his hilt as he faces the two of you together. Flurry of blows. You twist your sword into blow after blow, changing your speed and angle to keep the sorcerer guessing. He watches your sword carefully as you press him backwards, breathing heavily as he blocks and blocks again. But he doesn't see Raskir approaching him, and is knocked off balance when he's struck by the butt of Raskir's axe. He's quick to scurry away, trying to stand so that he doesn't trip over the stairs, but he doesn't have enough time to stop your pressing attacks. Take the lead. You take the lead, pressing the sorcerer further and further up the hill until he has nowhere left to run. Your ears ring with the sound of clashing metal as your swords continue to strike against each other. And all the while, Raskir walks menacingly around the fight to block off any means of escape that your opponent hopes to find. Eventually, the sorcerer's defense finally fails, and he drops his swords with a clatter at your feet, breathing hard. As Estrid finally rejoins you, covered in blood but still completely focused, the sorcerer looks around at all of you, and he grins and laughs. It's not the first time you've experienced such a reaction, and you even find yourself rolling your eyes. He cackles as he stretches a hand out towards you. By the time you think about raising your sword to stop him, it's already too late. He's spoken an incantation of some kind, and is back to howling with laughter, and once again you feel that strange, aching pain in your chest, and it pulls your focus away from the task at hand. What are you even doing here? Who are these strangers in this strange land? Did the siblings know that this might happen? Why didn't they warn you? Can they not be trusted? How were these simple outlaws able to push you so far for so long? What does that say about you? It just all makes you feel so contrite. Some part of your mind recognises that you must break free of whatever spell the sorcerer has put you under. You shake your head as you try and find something, anything to cling to return to reality. I'm going to trust in the party. I trust these guys. You have no reason to distrust the siblings. They've both shown nothing but concern for the situation ever since your first meeting last night, and they've shown considerable skill too for two people so young. You only wish you were half as good when you were their age. You wasted so much time going from place to place, learning little, achieving little. What was it all worth? Oh, maybe I should have believed in myself. You're so lost in your train of thought that you barely register your knees hitting the ground. It's almost as though you're watching a play as you see Estrid shake her head and look at Raskir, and then you. A part of your mind still fights with all its strength to be free of the spell, but your body simply won't comply. The sorcerer says something, but his words are muffled and drowned in some invisible, dreamlike lake. That is, until Estrid hits him in the head with her shield and you're released from the spell. With a long inward breath, you collapse forward onto your hands, gasping for air. Once again, and then twice, you shake your head, still breathing heavily as you push yourself back up. With that, quiet once again falls on the small, abandoned village of Fjalvik. The strain of it hits you immediately, and you take a long, deep breath as your head spins. The battle is finally over. You're not afraid to admit that you're relieved. The Battle of Fjalvik. You set your sword down for a moment, looking up at the sky as you take stock of events. It was a much harder fight than you were expecting. You're a little surprised by how well you've come through it, considering how hard it felt. As long as there are no complications, it shouldn't take you too long to recover. So much for catching them off guard. Leave it be, Raskir. If we'd done what I said, if we'd have done what you said, it would have been worse. I said, leave it be. You're brought back to reality by their bickering. You look up to see them both looking angry and upset. Raskir quickly stretches out his arm towards you and laughs as he sees you looking at them. Thanks for your help today, Outlander. This was much easier with your help. He must see something in your expression as he quickly changes back to a scowl. Are you alright? The sorcerer got to me. The sorcerer. He got in my head, that's all. Yeah, he's very powerful. Whatever that power is, it's nothing good. As Estrid paces around, she finds herself standing in front of one of the Peaceless's fallen shields. She uses a foot to kick it over, then takes a long, hard look at the symbol painted on its front. I don't know this writing. At first I thought it might be a symbol, but if it is, then it's not of any of our gods. Something fouler was at work here. He never mentioned any names. All of you turn towards the voice, once again on guard at the first sign of a new threat. You immediately recognise one of the prisoners, creeping through the door of a nearby ruined house. At the sight of the siblings' weapons, she immediately puts up her hands, though they're bound together by thick ropes. The second prisoner appears behind her a moment later, looking around nervously. The first indicates the sorcerer's unconscious form with a nervous, pointing finger. Before you arrived, he never said who or what they follow, and neither did any of the soldiers who captured us. He just kept complaining about the way the Peaceless were treated. Never mind that. Estrid hurries over to her to untie the bounds from her hands. Are you both alright? All fine, I think. A few scrapes and bruises, but we'll recover, I think. When she's free, she nervously looks around at you while Raskir unties the other prisoner. I'm sorry for you both for this whole ordeal. They both nod, but both still seem shaken and afraid as they rub their wrists. Where are you from? Vardheim. We were travelling south to trade when they attacked us on the road. It wasn't even at night, middle of the day, quite in the open. They just ran at us from all sides. We didn't even have the chance to defend ourselves. They knocked us out, and when we came about, we were in the forest. When was this? 2 days past, I think. I understand. That's enough for now. You can return to Azelfell with us. From there, we'll make sure you return home safely. Slowly, they both nod their understanding. Estrid shepherds them towards the village's gateway and tells them to warn her if there's any sign of trouble. When she returns, she glances again at the shield that she's kicked over, and then takes another long glance about the place. Can't just leave it like this. It needs to be destroyed. All of this needs to be destroyed. The body's burned, the shields, the pendants, wherever that's gone. I agree. Whatever's happened here is clearly evil, and it can't be allowed to remain. Estrid seems perplexed for a moment, but then she nods. Fine, but I'd like to make a note of the symbol before they're all destroyed. Perhaps Brand might recognise it. And what of the Peaceless here who are injured, not dead? What should we do with them? Estrid takes a long look around at the Peaceless who lie unconscious or groaning as they nurse serious wounds. Raskir stalks one that's trying to crawl away down the stairs, and then puts his boot on the man's back to stop him. Their lives were forfeit even before they aligned themselves to whatever this darkness is. We must execute them. They could be useful. They might be useful to keep alive. Raskier scowls at you as you pick up your sword and wipe it down on your trouser leg. What? The Outlander's right, Raskier. Raskier rounds on his sister angrily, but she pushes him away and signals for him to calm down. All of this is strange. The Peaceless gathering on the mainland like this, the symbol, the sorcerer, the ceremony. It's all wrong, but we should try to understand it in case we need to know for the future. What do we possibly need to know that we don't already know? They were exiled and they returned, and they've accepted the path of this sorcerer who speaks against the gods. Father would banish us both if we drag them through the hall when we have the chance to end them here. And what if this is leading to something else? Would you simply have us fight it blindly? The sorcerer can tell us if there are other places like this, other people doing things like this. Estrid's right. Estrid's right, Raskier. We should take at least one prisoner, just in case. If all of this is so strange, then we must take some precautions. It's the right thing to do. Estrid smiles, a very small, very relieved smile before she turns back to her brother to see if he understands. Father will understand, Raskier. If we don't try, we may not see something even more dangerous coming. Raskier fumes at you both for a long moment before he snarls and waves a despairing hand in your direction. Oh, and your heads be it. I'll have no part in this. Estrid collects the rope she untied from the Peaceless' own prisoners. She uses it to bind the sorcerer's hands and gag him. Then she looks back at the two of you with further instructions. Let's get this done. We'll already be arriving at Iselfell after nightfall. Your work brings you easily into the late afternoon. Raskier takes no issue in ending the suffering of those Peaceless who survived the battle. Those who try to flee are met with an even angrier end. And then you're faced with a pile of corpses that Estrid bitterly sets aflame. It's been some time since you last smelt that very singular smell, and your lip curls as you inhale the smoke. When the fire is blazing, anything bearing the same strange lines that the sorcerer bore is tossed into the flames as well. It makes the smoke even more acrid, and the three of you take no pleasure in staying much longer. You find some remnants of the supplies that you were supposed to bring to Isenfell, but they're dwindling, and very little remains to be salvaged. Finally, you find the pendant that the sorcerer thrust at you during the fight. Once again, as you gaze at it, you feel a great discomfort that's difficult to shake, and yet, somehow, you simply cannot look away. The lines and shapes have a strange magnetism about them. It's only interrupted when you sense Estrid and Raskier walking over to you from the bonfire. It seems mystical. It almost seems mystical, now that I've had the proper time to look at it. Over your shoulder, both the siblings observe it for a moment too. You quickly hear Estrid sigh. I've never seen such a thing, and I do not like it. You sure we shouldn't just take it back to Iselfell for Bran to examine properly? Absolutely not. Before you can stop him, Raskier rips the medallion from your hand and tosses it into the raging fire. A flame licks out to swallow up the medallion, and then it's gone out of sight, never to trouble anyone again. Estrid continues to look at the fire as Raskier starts to make his way down the steps towards the gate. She's quiet and contemplative. Is that how you say that? I don't know. Slowly turning to look at you, and speaking under her breath. Well, we should be glad we stopped wherever it was they were trying to achieve today, Outlander. Come on, the Hetman will be expecting us. It must already be early the next morning when you finally trudge into the Hetman's hall. The journey back to Iselfell was much slower than the journey to Hjalvik. You're tired, you're hungry, and you're still left with an uneasiness that you spent the hours-long walk trying to shake. All in all, after 2 consecutive nights of exhaustion, you're looking forward to a good night's sleep. The Hetman sat at the table, chatting quietly to one of his warriors when your small band approaches. His face falls when he sees the prisoner Raskier drags behind him, now conscious and nonchalant in his defeat. He and the warrior both stand, with their hands straight to the pommels of their swords. But Ulfgar's face quickly changes when he sees the others you've brought with you, their lives in ruin. He listens carefully, somberly and respectfully, as the Varnheim townsfolk tell their story. He tells them the Runehars have been kind to them, and that the ordeal is now over, and he wishes them well. Then he asks the warrior who sat with him to escort them to a longhouse until the sun has risen. As soon as the door is closed behind them, his expression becomes thunderous. He turns on the prisoner you've brought with you, who, after staying quiet for so long, returns the look with a cruel smile. Who is this? A sorcerer, father. Perhaps an agent of Hrangar? Why is he should be tied up, but he's not. He spoke against the gods. And you brought him here? Ulfgar's gaze snaps from the sorcerer to Estrid, who's visibly tense. We need answers, father. The Peaceless gathering here like they did, kidnapping townsfolk on the open road, allying with this sorcerer. We need to know whether they could be of a further threat, and we can't if they're all dead. So you brought the danger into our home. I told you. Oh, enough out of you. Father, I ask you to consider this carefully. He is the only survivor. We can still cut off the head of the snake, but only once it's spoken. Estrid's right, Hetman. Estrid's right, Hetman. You have an opportunity here to keep your community well defended. Estrid gives you an appreciative nod before she turns back to her father. The Hetman looks down at his daughter in grave thought for a long moment before he sighs. He looks at Raskir and tilts his head to indicate walking the prisoner away. Raskir snarls and lashes out at the prisoner, throwing him back towards the hall's entrance. Estrid, meanwhile, has bowed her head low, though you're not sure whether it's in regret or in defeat. You cannot just do things like this, Estrid. It's not our way. If you had asked me first. He speaks far more softly now, but it doesn't make Estrid's response any less pained. She looks back up at the far wall, keeping her expression stony. I'm sorry, father. He grimaces, saying nothing for a long moment before he dismisses her silently. She bows her head, first to him, and then to you, and follows her brother towards the front door. He quickly turns to you, and puts his hand behind his back to address you professionally. Regardless of the end result, I must thank you for your help today, Outlander. You've done us a great service. That's the least I could do. It's the least I could have done, Hetman. Now we're even. Bah! I don't care much for keeping scores settled, Outlander. That said, of course you will be paid. I will see to it tomorrow morning. I wondered whether you would consider staying one more night. I'm holding a feast tomorrow. Little more than political nonsense, but you're more than welcome to stay. He considers you for a long moment, and after his performance at breakfast, it doesn't take you long to become a little suspicious. Is this foretold by the runes? Is it foretold by the runes that I will stay? Ulfgar laughs and grins. No, unless... at least not that Brand has told me. Your immediate impression gives you no reason to believe he's lying, and you find yourself considering the offer. You've been on the road for a long time, and one day's hardly going to hurt. And besides, you have a strange, nagging feeling in the back of your mind. Somehow, it feels right. Oh, fine, I'll stay one more night. Look forward to it. He raises his hand in celebration, and then claps and rubs them together. Good decision. Then I bid you good night, Outlander. And tomorrow, we shall feast. Is this going to start the next chapter? Oh, yes. I'm fully healed. Before the feast begins, you have some time to yourself to reflect upon the last day and to prepare for what comes next. I'm going to keep going until it starts up a new chapter, which might be right now, but we'll see. Called it. This seems like a good kind of tying off point, so we'll do this and then we'll end it before the feast. You rather hope that a night's sleep would feel better than it does. It takes over an hour for you to fall asleep, and then your dreams are chaotic and disruptive. The battle plays through your head over and over again. Each time it plays out differently, and never how you'd expect. Silly mistakes, bad decisions, and strategy. Horrible misfortunes. None of it makes sense. And all of it's accompanied by this nervous disquiet deep in your chest. A feeling you just can't shake. Something familiar that you really wish wasn't there. When morning comes, you're glad that you don't have anywhere to be until nightfall. Your injuries still niggle at you, causing you to ache terribly. Yet more proof, if any were needed, that your age is starting to catch up with you. As you're getting ready in the light of day, you notice for the first time how filthy your clothes actually are. Your tunic and trousers were already covered in mud from your fight with the Peaceless, but now they're bloody too. You should really take the time to clean it up a little bit. It might be appreciated if you were a little more presentable for the feast you were personally invited to. Yeah, clean my clothes. With a sigh and a groan as you stretch, you feel a sense of obligation to your hosts. You finish getting dressed, wincing and complaining as you press at your bruised body. You ask a warrior from your longhouse where you might be able to wash yourself and your clothes. It gives you directions to a spot on the bay, beyond where the long ships are breached. Your walk there is very pleasant. Once again, the air crisp and rich with salt. The breeze helps you wake up, and though your stomach still grumbles, you start to feel just a bit better. The beach is already very busy, and many long ships are being rowed onto the pebbles and secured. You see many colourful shields of different designs, and hear people shouting and yelling to each other. But then it all gives way to tranquil quiet, and a pebble beach that looks out into the Gulf of Prem. The ocean is calm and quiet, and a beautiful deep blue that is soothing to look at. And along the beach, there are townsfolk standing in the shadows, cleaning weapons and washing clothes. It seems a communal experience, and so you unabashedly join them in the water. As you're scraping some of the dried blood and dirt off the fabric of your tunic, you notice you're being watched. A young child is giving an excited look to some of the bigger scars on your chest and arms. Given their culture, you reckon it's less about the scars themselves and more curiosity about how you got them. Smile at the child. You smile at the child and nod your head in a muted greeting. The child enthusiastically grins and waves at you. Then their mother notices, she smiles and then steers the child away from you with some rushed Thorwallian. That look on the child's face sticks with you for a little while as you continue your work. It reminds you of the life you once tried to make for yourself, away from the battlefield. A life of peace and genuine joy, with someone who thought the world of you. Such a long time ago now. In the afternoon, you decide to do some training to combat the aches and pains with physical exercise. You lap the town once and then twice before you start to break a sweat. In the square outside the Hetman's Hall, there's a solitary tree that you can use to practice your sword work. There, you practice all the techniques you know, one after another, with all the same discipline you learned so many years ago. It draws the attention of some passerby, which you ignore with relative ease. It's only when you see Estrid approaching you from the Hetman's Hall that you stop your practice. You didn't just teach yourself to fight, did you? I was a soldier. For a while, a long time ago. You fight like one. Have you been fighting ever since? More or less. She seems to realise you won't say anything more than that, nods in gentle understanding. Would you like to spar? Would you like to spar for a short while? Firstly. She pulls a small bag from a hook on the back of her belt and throws it at you. You drop your sword into your other hand in order to catch it cleanly, recognising the familiar weight of coin. Thank you for your service. She bows her head politely, but then gives you a genuine smile. I would join you if you don't mind. It's been a little while since I fought someone from outside Thorwall. We just had like a war. There was fighting. Of course. It'll be good practice for us both. She returns a few moments later with her own sword, warming up her wrists by twisting it around in front of her. It's a hard fight. You aren't sure whether it's because she needs to vent or because she's trying to show off Thorwallian fighting skills, but it's certain she isn't holding back, pressing you onto the defensive with relative ease. Battle sense. Before you can be caught completely off guard, you start paying attention to her footwork. It acts as a tell, hinting where she'll strike from next and allowing you to parry and strike back cleanly. A few times this happens, frustrating her more and more into speeding up her attacks. No matter how quickly she moves, once you're in the rhythm, she simply can't get past your blocks. Eventually, she throws down her sword and breathes in deeply, shaking her head in defeat. You must show me how to do that. There's no teaching that, it's just experience. When you know the techniques off by heart, you can focus on other things. I'll keep that in mind. It's always good to learn something from an opponent. I actually wanted to ask, during the battle yesterday, you disarmed a man using your sword and shield. Can you show me how you did that? She gives you a curious look as she retrieves her sword. You don't know how to disarm people? Well, not like that. You were able to transition straight into your next attack. Show me. You haven't had the opportunity to learn something new as a student for quite some time. It's almost refreshing in and of itself, and you can tell straight away that the manoeuvre is also a useful one. First, Estrid shows you the problem with the method of disarming you already know. As you stop short to tear her sword from her hand, she gently elbows you in the face and stomach. See? You've exposed the entire right side of your body. I can hit you anywhere. I see. If they have another weapon or they stun you with a fist, the fight's already over. It's not just about removing their weapon, it's also taking them off guard. She then walks you through her own method, side by side and step by step. It's not dissimilar, and you're sure you've probably performed the manoeuvre by accident at least once. The simple difference is that instead of catching the weapon itself, you catch the weapon arm. Then they have very little choice but to let go. A human arm is not supposed to bend that way. And you keep going, and then you keep going, keep stepping forward so they stay off balance. Exactly. That's the real distraction. They can't hit you with a broken arm, and while they're flailing, I read that like an idiot. Try it against me now. She once again stands opposite you, preparing herself to attack. You parry her attacks twice in order to get into rhythm, and then move in for your first attempt. Disarm! As she sends a powerful downward strike towards you, you twist your own sword out of the way. With a careful sidestep, you catch her arm at the wrist in one hand and at the elbow with the other, in the other. Without stopping, you start to twist until Estrid gives an uncomfortable growl and the sword falls from her hand. While she's defenceless, you feign punches at her gut and head, and then step past her and release her arm. Well done. You picked that up quickly. I have a good teacher. She notes the comment with a coy smile. Estrid. The two of you turn to see Raskir making his way towards you from the Hetman's Hall. He gives you a curt nod and a wave as he approaches, which you return respectfully. Father's asking for you. Some final preparations for this evening. She looks up to find the sun and gauge the time, then quickly back towards you. Suppose I'll see you at the feast this evening, Outlander. Until then, thank you. She bows her head one last time and follows her brother away, leaving you to think about what she's taught you. It's never too late to learn. That was something your army instructors were fond of saying. Perhaps Brand was right after all. Perhaps there was a reason for you to stay in Eiselfell. Do we do the feast now? No. I'm going to stop, because I've already been recording for over an hour and a half. I need to stop, walk away. I knew this was going to happen, and I was going to get sucked in. This is good. There's a few little issues, like the fact that we've made a big thing about bringing the priest back as prisoner, but then when he's on the screen, he's like, "Ugh," which doesn't make any sense. And there were a few things about that, well, while we were in the big fight, they mentioned someone having a sword, but in the picture they had an axe and holding a weapon in both hands. Oh, actually, maybe that was holding a weapon in both hands, which he was, not weapons in both hands. Okay, maybe that one's on me. But yeah, there's a few little niggly things like that they're not a problem, it just feels a bit like, okay, couldn't be bothered to do that, or just missed that out or something. But all in all, story-wise, world-wise, I am enjoying this thoroughly, and I'm already kind of in my head picking out where things could be different, and obviously we've got a whole other character with a whole different skill set as well, so there is a lot of promise here, a lot of potential. But as I said, I'm going to leave that up to you guys. So if you want this to become a series and we can go through and try and clear this off fully like we did with Sir Bronte, then yes, I'm up for that. But ultimately, you're the people that are going to watch this. So if you want to see it, cool, let me know and we shall. If not, this has been a fun experience and we'll leave it there. So if you do want to check this out for yourself, then the link to the Steam page is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, then why don't you go ahead and hit the like button, the peaceless sorcerer that is the subscribe button. Make sure you bad boy. And until next time, love you, bye.